28,000 feet above sea level, minus 40 degrees, wind tearing through your jacket like paper. Polchin Tamang stands over his client and understands. They're both going to die here. Subrata Ghosh is sitting in the snow, not lying down, sitting. Back against the slope, hands on his knees, like he just decided to take a break. But his eyes are half closed, his lips are blue, his breathing is shallow, irregular. The oxygen tank on his back is almost empty, the needle deep in the red zone. His body no longer responds to his brain's commands. Hypothermia does its work quickly and without mercy. Polchin tries to lift him, pulls at his shoulders, yells in his face, tries to wake whatever's still alive in there. Subrata opens his eyes for a second, looks through Polchin at something far away, and closes them again. Polchin checks his own tank. 2 hours, maybe 3, maximum, if he's lucky. He does the math of death. Subrata weighs close to 200 pounds, plus gear, another 45. At this altitude, every step takes 10 times the energy it would below. There's definitely not enough oxygen for both of them. Even for one, it's questionable. Dragging a person down through ice walls, through rocks, through sections where you need both hands, it's physically impossible. Staying with him means dying together. Guaranteed. Polchin looks down at the lights of base camp. They flicker somewhere far below, like stars on another planet. Then he looks at Subrata, then down again, and understands there is no choice. There's only the illusion of choice. In the death zone, there's no heroism. There's only biology. Your lungs don't get enough oxygen. Your brain shuts down non-essential functions. Hallucinations begin. Your body literally devours itself to hang on for 1 more hour. Every minute here costs you years of life below, if you even make it to below. Polchin stands over a dying man and thinks about his family, about his wife waiting for him in the village, about his children, who he promised he'd come back to, about his mother, who begged him not to go this season. He's seen death on Everest before, many times, but he's never been the one making the decision. Subrata opens his eyes again, looks at Polchin, says nothing. Maybe he understands. Maybe he's already too far gone to understand anything. Polchin puts his hand on his shoulder. One last gesture, one last touch from a living human being, and he begins his descent. Alone? But why were they even up here? 2 men on the roof of the world, where one has to choose between 2 deaths. What brought them to this slope on this day? And most importantly, who's to blame? To understand this decision, you need to understand who the Sherpas are, and forget everything you thought you knew about them. In the West, they're called mountain superhumans, invincible, born for altitude. In documentaries, they smile at the camera against backdrops of ice walls. In National Geographic photos, they stand on summits holding flags like they're comfortable up there. Journalists write about their incredible endurance, about their special blood, about their genetic adaptation to altitude. You get the impression they're a different race, mountain people, beings who don't mind the cold and thin air. But here's the truth. Sherpas are an ethnic group from eastern Nepal, regular people. They don't have superpowers. Yes, they're better adapted to altitude than someone from Amsterdam or Texas. Their bodies produce more red blood cells. Their lungs work more efficiently. But that doesn't make them immortal. Pasang Lahamu Sherpa is afraid of heights. Can you imagine? Works as a guide on Everest, and every time before a climb, he can't sleep from fear. Mingma Tenzi Sherpa suffers from migraines above 23,000 feet. Lakpa Rita Sherpa lost 3 fingers to frostbite in 2018. Regular people with regular problems. They live in villages in the valleys of the Dud Kosi and Potakosi rivers. They grow potatoes and barley, keep yaks, go to local schools where teachers come once a week from Kathmandu, pray in Buddhist monasteries, celebrate Losar, the Tibetan New Year. They get married, raise children, argue with neighbors over property lines. The most ordinary life. Their only difference, they were born here, at 10 to 13,000 feet, where the jungle ends and the mountains begin. They know when avalanches come, which snow is safe, which isn't, where to hide from the wind, how to read the clouds. It's not mystical, it's just generations of experience. But when climbers with money arrive, everything changes. Sherpas are expected to perform miracles. They're supposed to carry 110 pounds of gear through the Khumbu icefall, the most dangerous section of the route. Supposed to set ropes on vertical walls, risking falling first. Supposed to go ahead, checking the path. Supposed to go back for forgetful clients who left their camera in a tent at 23,000 feet. Supposed to rescue those who overestimated their abilities. Supposed to carry other people's oxygen, other people's gear, other people's ambitions, and smile while doing it, because the client is paying, because the company's reputation depends on it, because if you're not smiling, you're a bad Sherpa. Ang Dawa Sherpa tells this story. In 2012, he dragged a Canadian down almost 600 feet, without oxygen himself, because he gave his tank to the client. The Canadian survived, went home, gave an interview about his heroism, about how he fought death on the slope. Ang Dawa is mentioned once in that article. My guide helped me descend. 6 words. For 2 hours of work at the edge of human capability. The world wants to believe in superhumans, because it's easier that way. If Sherpas are stronger than regular people, then it's not as dangerous for them. Then you don't have to worry when they go first on the rope. Then if one of them doesn't come back, well, it happens. The mountains take their own, but Sherpas aren't mountain people. They're just as mortal as everyone else. It's just that their deaths somehow cost less. May 10th, 1996. The worst night in Everest's history. 8 people will die in 12 hours. Among them, the famous New Zealand guide Rob Hall. Ang Dorje Sherpa is working on Hall's team that day. In the morning, everything goes according to plan. The group reaches the summit, takes photos, celebrates. But they descend too late, and on Everest, late is a death sentence. A cyclone hits suddenly. Winds of 75 miles per hour knock people off their feet. 0 visibility. Temperature drops to -50. Hall gets stuck on the south summit with his client Doug Hansen. Hansen can't go on. Hall stays with him, tries to wait for help. Over the radio, he asks for oxygen, asks for people. Ang Dorje hears this call and goes up. Against wind that rips off masks, against snow that hits your face like glass. He tries to reach them for 3 hours. 3 hours fighting a mountain that doesn't want to let anyone through. He almost makes it. Almost. But on the South Col, a gust of wind hits him with such force that Dorje loses his balance. One more step, and he'll fall. His oxygen is running out. His fingers stop responding. He understands. Going further means only death. His own. Dorje returns to camp. Alone, exhausted, frostbitten. He collapses into a tent and loses consciousness. Down below, in base camp, his wife Lahakba doesn't know if her husband is alive. Radio contact is lost. The satellite phone is silent. She sits and waits. Just waits. Hall dies on the slope. Hansen too. 6 more don't survive until dawn. The disaster becomes world news. CNN runs reports. The New York Times prints obituaries. Books come out one after another. Documentaries, feature films. Everyone remembers Rob Hall, the brave guide who didn't abandon his client, the hero who stayed until the end. They talk about him, write about him, make movies about him. His wife gives interviews. His story becomes legend. Ang Dorje Sherpa is mentioned in footnotes, if he's mentioned at all. A man who risked his life to save strangers, who went against a cyclone, who came back alive only by miracle. His name gets lost in the lists. Just another Sherpa, another line in a report. Why does this happen? Why are some acts of courage written into textbooks while others are wiped away like dust? The answer is simple and brutal. Money decides whose story matters, and whose life is considered valuable. Let's look at the numbers. A Western climber pays between $40,000 and $120,000 for an Everest expedition. This includes the Nepali government permit, equipment, oxygen, food, and Sherpas. Of course, Sherpas. Each client gets a personal guide. This person will carry their backpack when it gets heavy. We'll set up the tent at camps. We'll make tea at 23,000 feet. We'll go ahead, checking every step. We'll go back if the client forgot their camera. We'll drag them down if something goes wrong. For all this, a Sherpa gets $3,000 to $5,000 for the season. 3 months of work in the most extreme conditions on the planet. Imagine that arithmetic. The client pays $100,000. The person dragging them to the summit gets $3,000. But that's not all. Before the season starts, Sherpas climb Everest dozens of times. They string miles of rope through the Khumbu icefall, a place where ice moves at 3 feet per day, where crevasses open without warning, where ice towers fall just because gravity works. They install ladders across 30-foot chasms, fix anchor points on vertical walls, carry oxygen tanks to high camps, 6 or 7 tanks per climb. Each weighs 11 pounds. Do the math. Pemba Dorje Sherpa makes 22 ascents above 20,000 feet in one season, 22 times into the zone where your body starts dying. His client for that same season climbs once, and it's the client who later talks in interviews about his incredible endurance. Mingma Tenzi sets ropes on the Hillary Step, a nearly vertical rock face at 28,500 feet. He works without a safety line because there's no one to belay him. He's first. If he falls, no one will catch him. For this work, he gets a bonus, $300, the price of an iPhone. When the client reaches the summit, he posts a photo on social media, writes a post about fighting himself, about perseverance, about how he conquered Everest. The Sherpa in the photo holds a flag and smiles. His name isn't mentioned in the caption. The system has worked this way for so long that everyone's used to it. Nobody asks uncomfortable questions. Why is one person worth 30 times more than another? Why is one person's dream paid for with another person's life? And it all started with one photograph. May 29th, 1953. Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay stand on the summit of Everest, the first people on the roof of the world. Hillary returns a hero. He's met by Queen Elizabeth, parades, medals. Tenzing also receives fame, but different. He becomes a symbol. Proof that Sherpas were made for mountains, that it's their destiny. The press inflates the legend. They write about his incredible strength, about how he carried more than anyone, how he didn't tire where Europeans collapsed from exhaustion, as if something special flows through his veins instead of blood. Mountain antifreeze. The myth grows with each year, each expedition, each successful climb. Sherpas start believing it themselves. If Tenzing could do it, we must. If he didn't give up, we can't give up. The legend becomes a standard, and the standard becomes a requirement. Now every Sherpa is expected to perform miracles, not just do the job, do the impossible, climb faster, carry more, go back for whoever fell behind, save whoever miscalculated their strength, never complain, never show weakness. Lhakpa Gelu. Sherpa tells this story. When he told a client he was tired at 26,000 feet, the man looked at him with surprise. What do you mean you're tired? You're a Sherpa. As if fatigue is something that doesn't apply to them. As if they're machines, not people. Dawa Fudi Sherpa breaks a rib falling in the icefall. The doctor at base camp says, rest needed, minimum 1 month. The company says, clients are paying, need a guide. Dawa goes up with a broken rib, because refusing means destroying your reputation, means no work next season. The myth became a trap. The more they talk about Sherpas as heroes, the more heroism is demanded of them. The more they repeat about their strength, the more dangerous it is to admit weakness. Tenzing's legend, which should have inspired, became shackles for thousands of people. They can't make mistakes, because a Sherpa's mistake isn't just a mistake, it's destroying the myth, and the industry needs the myth. Without it, the whole system falls apart. Now, let's go back to Polchin and Subrata, to the moment when everything could still have been prevented. April 2016, Everest Base Camp. Polchin Tamang meets his client for the first time. Subrata Ghosh, 50 years old, a police officer from Kolkata, experienced climber, several serious ascents under his belt. But from the first minutes, something's off. Subrata talks too fast, gestures too actively. His eyes burn, not with joy, but with something else, with obsession. Polchin has seen this before. People come to Everest not just to conquer a mountain. They're running from something, from failures, from age, from the thought that life is passing them by. First red flag, acclimatization. Standard protocol, climb to Camp 1 at 20,000 feet. Spend the night, descend. Let your body adjust, then Camp 2, then 3, slowly, patiently. Your body needs to learn to work in new conditions. Subrata rushes, says he doesn't have much time, that his leave is limited, that he needs to stick to the schedule. Polchin explains, the schedule doesn't matter if you die on the slope. Subrata nods, but doesn't listen. A different movie is already playing in his head. On the third day, Subrata climbs to Camp 2 earlier than planned, without telling Polchin. just gets up at 4 in the morning and goes. Polchin finds out when he wakes up, runs after him, catches up with the client halfway there. Subrata is gasping for breath, heart rate 140, headache, classic signs of altitude sickness. Polchin says, "We're turning back, right now." Subrata refuses, says everything's fine, that he just needs to rest. They argue for 20 minutes on the glacier, 20 minutes when every second matters. Polchin practically drags Subrata down by force. The client is angry, accuses his guide of being overcautious, says that other Sherpas aren't so careful. In this moment, Polchin understands. He's not dealing with a partner, but a problem, a person who doesn't hear warnings, who thinks he knows better, who confuses stubbornness with willpower. That evening, they sit in the tent, silent. There's already a crack between them. Trust is broken. And without trust in the mountains, there's nothing to do. Because up there, every decision can be your last, but it's too late to back out now. The money's been paid, the season is on. The weather window opens rarely. They continue. May 21st, midnight, Camp 4 at 26,000 feet. Temperature -22. Wind howling so hard the tents crack at the seams. Polchin checks the gear one last time. Oxygen tanks, headlamps, spare batteries, everything's in place. Subrata is already dressed. Pacing in circles in the cramped tent, nervous, checking his watch every 2 minutes. Polchin says, "We need to leave exactly at midnight, not earlier. Too early, you'll freeze on the slope in the dark. Too late, you won't make it down before afternoon." But Subrata doesn't wait. At 11:40, he's already leaving the tent. Polchin shouts after him, but his voice is lost in the wind. Has to pack on the go. Chase after the client who's already climbing up the rope. This is a critical mistake. Your body works by its own rules. It needs a certain rhythm. Subrata is going too fast. Heart rate skyrockets. Breathing gets erratic. He's burning energy like fuel in a race car. And there are still 8 hours of climbing ahead. Polchin tries to slow the pace, says, "Stop. Rest." Subrata waves him off. He sees other climbers ahead. Doesn't want to fall behind. Doesn't want to be last. Competing with people who don't even know him. The first hour, they cover a section that usually takes 90 minutes. Subrata is pleased. Polchin isn't. Because he's seen this before. People who rush at the start crawl like snails at the end. Or don't crawl at all. By 2 in the morning, Subrata is already breathing heavily, taking breaks every 150 feet. The pace drops. But he can't admit to being tired. That would mean admitting Polchin was right, and his ego won't allow it. They climb in complete darkness. Around them, only the beam of a headlamp and the endless slope. Snow crunches under boots. Wind hits their backs. Stars so bright it seems you could touch them. Beautiful to the point of horror. But the beauty is deceptive. Every step here is a step closer to the edge, to that line beyond which your body says, "That's it. You're on your own." 6 in the morning. Sunrise at 28,200 feet. The sun rises beyond the horizon, painting the snow pink and gold. The Himalayas stretch below like frozen waves. A moment people sell their cars and take out loans for. But Subrata doesn't see this beauty. He only looks at his feet. Each step comes with difficulty. His lungs are burning, his head is splitting. About 1,000 feet of vertical distance remain to the summit. Doesn't sound like much. But up here, it's an eternity. Polchin looks back, counts the people in the column. 23 climbers stretched across the slope. Some are sitting, recovering their breath. One lies in the snow, his Sherpa trying to lift him. A queue is already forming, and ahead lies the most difficult section, the Hillary Step. The wind changes. Polchin feels it on his skin. The gusts become sharper, colder. The thermometer shows -42, but that's without accounting for wind chill. With the wind, it feels like -60. At this temperature, exposed skin freezes in a minute. Subrata stops every 20 steps, leans on his ice axe, breathes into his mask so heavily that Polchin can hear the wheezing even through the roar of the wind. The oxygen cylinder shows half, normal for the ascent, but worrying for the descent. Polchin checks the forecast on the radio. The weather forecasters promised a window until noon. Now, the window is narrowing. The storm is approaching faster than expected. Wind gusts are already reaching 50 miles per hour. By afternoon, it'll be 75. Other guides begin turning their clients around. Too dangerous, too slow. Need to descend while there's time. But most continue because the summit is close, because it's paid for, because the next chance might never come. Subrata sees people moving forward. For him, this is a signal. He can continue. Polchin sees clouds crawling up from below like living things. For him, this is a signal they need to leave. But the client's voice is louder than the voice of experience. They pass a body in an orange down jacket. A frozen climber sits leaning against the rock, his face half buried in snow. Died a year ago. Or 5 years. Time doesn't work here. Bodies remain as markers, warnings that no one reads. Subrata looks at the corpse, looks away, keeps going. Polchin knows. Right now the client thinks this won't happen to him. Everyone thinks that. Until the final moment. 9:30 in the morning. 29,028 feet. The summit of Everest. Subrata stands on the roof of the world and cries with happiness. He hugs Polchin, shouts something into his mask, but the wind carries away the words, takes out the Indian flag, unfurls it. Another climber takes a photo. Subrata kisses the medallion around his neck. There's a photograph of his wife and daughter inside. A moment of triumph, a moment he'd dreamed about for years. Polchin isn't celebrating. He looks at his watch, looks at the sky. The clouds are rising from below faster than an hour ago. The wind is strengthening. He feels vibration in his bones. That's how it blows at this altitude before a storm. Checks Subrata's oxygen cylinder. The needle is in the red zone. An hour, maximum an hour and a half. His own cylinder. Slightly better, 2 hours. To Camp 4, descending takes a minimum of 5 hours. If they're lucky, if there are no delays, if Subrata doesn't slow down. The math is merciless. They're already in time deficit. Polchin pulls Subrata by the sleeve, points down. Time to go. Immediately. Subrata nods, but doesn't move. One more photo. One more angle. One more minute at the summit. Each of these minutes will later turn into hours of fighting for life. Other groups are already descending. Experienced guides know the rule. The summit is only halfway. Most accidents happen on the descent. When euphoria dulls caution. When the body is wrung to its limit. When the oxygen runs out. Subrata finally begins moving down. Slowly, uncertainly. The euphoria hasn't passed yet, but fatigue already covers him like a wave. His legs don't obey. He clutches the rope with both hands, descends by inches. Polchin walks beside him, secures every step, says, "Put your foot here. Hold on tighter. Don't look down." Becomes a living instruction manual because Subrata's brain is already working at half capacity. Oxygen starvation doing its work. The first 300 feet take them 40 minutes. Usually it takes 15. Polchin understands. This is going to be a long descent. Very long. And every minute brings them closer to the point of no return. The first hour of descent gives hope. Subrata holds on, slowly but moving. Polchin leads him by the hand through difficult sections. They bypass the queue at the Hillary step. Climbers stuck on a narrow section, waiting their turn. Each minute of waiting eats precious oxygen. 11:30. They pass the south summit. Another 1,300 feet of vertical distance to Camp 4. Quite realistic, if there are no delays, if Subrata holds out. But at noon, everything breaks. Subrata stops, simply stands in the middle of the slope and doesn't go further. Polchin pulls him by the hand. Subrata doesn't react. Polchin turns him toward himself, looks into his eyes through the mask. Subrata looks through him, his gaze empty, absent. "I can't see," Subrata says, voice quiet, frightened. "Everything's white. I can't see anything." Snow blindness, classic complication at altitude. Ultraviolet rays in the thin atmosphere burn the cornea, like looking at welding without protection. Pain will come later. Right now, just a white veil instead of the world. Polchin checks Subrata's goggles. One lens is cracked, probably during the ascent. A small crack, enough to let in the killer light. Subrata didn't notice or didn't pay attention. Now, he's paying the price. "We need to go," Polchin says. "Hold on to me. I'll lead." He takes Subrata by the shoulder, pushes him forward. Subrata takes a step, a second, stumbles, almost falls. Pulchin holds him up. They cover 60 feet in 15 minutes. This is impossible. 3 more hours to camp at normal pace. At this pace, 8, maybe 10. And there's an hour of oxygen left. For Subrata, less. Pulchin tries to pull him faster, but Subrata weighs 200 pounds, plus equipment. At 28,000 feet, every movement drains strength like a sprint down below. Muscles burn, lungs can't keep up. Heart pounds at its limit. Subrata sits in the snow, says, "I'll rest a minute." Pulchin knows. If he sits, he'll never get up again. Yells at him, pulls him by the jacket. Subrata doesn't move. They're stuck in the death zone, where a person can survive a matter of hours, where every second of delay brings the end closer. Pulchin stands over Subrata and counts the minutes. His own cylinder shows 20 minutes, maybe 30 if he breathes economically. Subrata's cylinder is empty, the needle at 0. He's breathing the thin air, which has half the oxygen needed for life. Pulchin tries again, lifts Subrata under the arms, drags him 30 feet. Subrata mumbles something incoherent. His legs buckle. He sinks into the snow again. Pulchin checks his pulse, weak, irregular. Lips blue even under the mask. Hypothermia has reached the heart. The body is shutting down the periphery, trying to preserve the brain and internal organs. The last stage before the system fails completely. Another group passes by. A Sherpa looks at Pulchin, nods, understands everything without words, continues leading his client down. No one will stop to help. At this altitude, everyone's on their own. This isn't cruelty, this is biology. Pulchin takes out the radio, calls base camp, reports coordinates, says, "Client can't move, blind, hypothermic." The dispatcher answers, "The nearest rescue group is at Camp 2. They can ascend tomorrow. Maybe, if the weather allows. Tomorrow, in 20 hours. Subrata won't survive too." Pulchin sits down beside him, takes off his glove, places his hand on Subrata's shoulder. Subrata opens his eyes, looks at nothing, moves his lips. Pulchin leans closer, trying to hear. Subrata whispers, "My family." "Tell them." Pulchin nods, though Subrata can't see it. Then he stands, checks his own cylinder one last time. 15 minutes, maybe less. 4 hours to camp. Without oxygen, it's a lottery, but there's a chance. He takes a step down, then another. Doesn't look back, because if he looks back, he'll stay. And if he stays, both will die. The math is simple and merciless. Subrata remains sitting in the snow, back against the slope, hands on his knees, like at the very beginning of this story. The circle closes where it was meant to close. Pulchin descends alone. The oxygen mask dangles on his chest. The cylinder emptied 20 minutes ago. Now he's breathing air that has a third of the normal oxygen content. His brain begins shutting down in parts. Complex functions go first: planning, analysis, memory. Only the basic instinct remains, putting one foot in front of the other. Left, right, mechanical movement like a wind-up toy. At 26,000 feet, he sees his father. He's standing on the slope and waving, calling Pulchin home. Pulchin knows his father died 5 years ago, but the vision is so real, he can almost hear the voice. Hallucinations, a standard symptom of oxygen starvation. The brain tries to fill gaps in perception, creates images from memory. Sometimes climbers talk to the dead. Sometimes they see cities in the clouds. Sometimes they just leave the road and walk into nowhere. Pulchin stops, closes his eyes, counts to 10, opens them. His father disappears. Ahead is only the slope and the rope. He grabs the rope and continues. 25,600. He stumbles, falls to his knees, lies for a minute, 2, thinks he could stay here, just close his eyes. The cold isn't felt anymore, a sure sign of the final stage of hypothermia. The body shuts off pain receptors. Death becomes like sleep. But something makes him stand. Maybe survival instinct, maybe thoughts of family, maybe just stubbornness. He rises and goes on. 24,300, Camp 3. Empty tents flap in the wind. He crawls into one of them, finds a thermos with water. Frozen, but it doesn't matter. Chews ice. Moisture enters his throat. First sip in 8 hours. Half an hour of rest, then down again. The body works at the limit of possible, and slightly beyond the limit. 21,300. The air becomes denser, breathing easier. The brain begins to wake up. Hallucinations retreat. Reality returns sharply and painfully. With it comes understanding of what happened. 5 in the evening. Polchin reaches Camp 2, falls by the tent. Other Sherpas run out, drag him inside, give him hot tea, oxygen. He lies and stares at the tent ceiling. Alive. By some miracle alive. 3 days later, a rescue group finds Subrata Ghosh. More precisely, what's left of him. He sits in the same position, frozen, covered with snow. Another statue on the slope of Everest among dozens of others. The news spreads instantly. Indian media pick up the story. Police officer dies during Everest descent. Then details emerge. Guide left him to die. And it begins. The internet explodes. Comments under the news number in the thousands. How can you abandon a person? This is betrayal. Should be tried for abandonment and danger. People who've never climbed higher than an observation deck explain what should have been done. Someone writes, Polchin is a hero. He did the only possible thing, saved at least one life, his own. Others respond, he's a coward. A real guide dies with his client, like a captain on a sinking ship. Subrata's family gives interviews. His wife cries before cameras. His daughter holds her father's photograph. They demand an investigation, demand compensation, demand justice. Their pain is understandable and real. But who should it be directed at? Polchin remains silent for the first week, then gives one interview to a Nepali newspaper, speaks briefly, I tried, did everything I could. Both would have died. The journalist asks, don't you feel guilty? Polchin answers, I do, every day. The climbing community splits. Experienced guides support Polchin. They know the laws of altitude. Know that sometimes there's no choice. Beginners and armchair experts condemn. To them, it seems there's always a heroic option. Ed Viesturs, an American climber with 7,000-8,000ers, writes in his blog, Polchin made the only correct decision. In the death zone, you can't save someone who can't walk on their own. This is physics, not morality. But physics is hard to explain to people who judge from the comfort of warm couches, who've never stood at 26,000 feet without oxygen, who don't know what the choice between two deaths looks like. Polchin returns to his village. Villagers look at him differently, some with sympathy, others with condemnation. He no longer takes clients to Everest. The story of Subrata and Polchin isn't an exception. It's part of a system that turned a sacred mountain into a conveyor belt of ambitions. 1996, the catastrophic season we already mentioned. 15 people die, the whole world in shock. Everest is called the Mountain of Death. People say, we need to stop, rethink, change the rules. A year passes, 2, the shock fades, people forget. The queue of those wanting to climb only grows. 2003, 170 successful ascents per season. 2007, 320. 2013, 550. 2023, more than 600 people reach the summit in one spring season. 600 people, on a section 3 meters wide. Can you picture this? Photos appear that circle the entire world. A queue of climbers at the Hillary Step. People stand in traffic at 28,500 feet. Wait 2 hours to pass forward. Oxygen running out. Cold piercing to the bones. But they stand, because the summit is ahead. Some die right in this queue, from hypothermia, from exhaustion, from oxygen running out while they waited their turn for glory. Their bodies are bypassed at the edge, selfies taken with them as background. The journey continues. The Nepali government issues a record number of permits, 381 permits in 2019 alone. Each costs $11,000. That's tens of millions into the budget. Economy matters more than safety. Companies compete for clients, lower prices. $40,000 for the ascent. Cheap, but means fewer guides, less oxygen, less support. The client thinks, I'll save $20,000. Doesn't think, what exactly is the company saving on? Every year, an average of 5 people die, sometimes more. In 2019, 11. News comes out for a day or two, then disappears. Tragedy turns into statistics. Names are forgotten. Only numbers remain in reports. Everest has become an attraction for the rich, a check mark on the achievement list, a photo for Instagram. A mountain where death is just part of the experience, unpleasant but expected. And behind this conveyor belt stand real people, those who pay the price not in money but in lives. An average Sherpa earns $4,000 to $5,000 per season. Good money for Nepal, where annual family income often doesn't exceed $1,000. For 3 months of work, you can provide for a family for a year, build a house, send children to school in Kathmandu. But at what price does this money come? Lhakpa Sherpa lost his brother in the Khumbu icefall in 2014. An avalanche covered a group of Sherpas who were setting ropes before the season began. 16 people died in seconds. The worst mass tragedy on Everest. Lhakpa received compensation, $15,000 from the Nepali government, another $10,000 from insurance, $25,000 for his brother's life, father of 3 children. A client pays that much for 2 weeks of guide services. After that avalanche, Sherpas declared a strike, demanded better conditions, larger payments to families of the deceased, respect. The season stopped for 2 weeks. Then the government promised reforms. Payments increased to $40,000. Sherpas returned to work. The system continued operating. Dawa Fudi tells his son studies at university in Kathmandu, wants to become an engineer. Dawa climbs Everest every year to pay for his education. Tells his son, never become a guide, never. Study, find another job, escape this circle. But for many young Sherpas, there's no choice. Tourism is the only source of good earnings in the region. You can work as a porter for $100 a month, or risk your life for $5,000 per season. The math is cruel but clear. Traditions crumble under the pressure of money. Chomo Lungma, in Tibetan, Mother of the World, a sacred mountain. Sherpas made offerings before ascent, asked permission, treated it with reverence. Now it's business, a route, a product. Pemba Dorje says, before, only those who felt a calling went to the mountain. Now, those who need money, go. Spirituality has been replaced by finances. Let's return to the beginning. Could Subrata Ghosh's death have been prevented? Yes, absolutely. If he'd listened to the guide's advice, if he hadn't rushed, if he'd followed the acclimatization schedule, if he'd checked his goggles before departure, if he'd turned around when Polchin said, too slow, we need to descend. But it's not just about Subrata's mistakes. He acted within a system that pushes people toward these mistakes. The system says, you paid $100,000. You must reach the summit. Otherwise, the money is wasted. The system says, others make it, so you can too. Doesn't matter that your preparation is weaker. Doesn't matter that your body can't handle it. The system tells Sherpas, the client pays, the client is right. Your task is to get him to the top, at any cost. Even if that cost is your life. Companies compete for clients, promise 100% success. We'll get you to the summit. Don't say, this might kill you. Marketing matters more than honesty. The Nepali government issues permits to everyone who can pay. Experience isn't checked. Physical condition isn't tested. Have money, get a permit. The country's budget matters more than people's safety. Clients see photos of successful ascents, don't see bodies on the slopes. Read stories of triumph. Don't read reports of rescue operations. Choose to believe the pretty picture. Polchin Tamang isn't guilty of Subrata's death, but his decision to leave the client is a consequence of this system. He ended up where no one should end up, facing a choice that shouldn't exist. Everest is silent. The mountain doesn't give answers. It just stands, indifferent to human ambitions, to debates about heroism and cowardice, to numbers and reports. Snow covers Subrata's body. In a year, he'll barely be visible. In 5, he'll become another landmark on the route, another story that will be forgotten. And the question remains, is someone else's dream worth someone else's life? And who decides when that price is too high?